What's going on, everyone? You got George, Max, and Chip coming at you with another episode of Shout at the Plate. Been a while since we've done this. We're going to try to remember how it goes. But yeah, let's talk some baseball. We're in the All-Star break. Juan Soto won the home run derby the other night. Um, I guess we start with him because he turned down that huge extension from the Nationals. They offered him 15 years, 440 million. Now they're saying, the Mets and Dodgers and Cardinals and Yankees and Giants and Padres. And, if there's a team in baseball that's not interested in Juan Soto, they're doing something wrong. Whether they have the capital or what have you to actually go get him it remains to be seen. So what do you guys think of this whole Juan Soto situation right now?
Well, I mean, it's funny because it's
Haven't you called Uncle Steve asking him to go get him already?
I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think he actually might end up with the Mets. I think as in terms of landing spots, if you can sort of get past the fact that they're in division, they definitely make the most sense considering the fact that their window is closing anyway in about 2 years. And if there's any team that's really going to destroy their farm system right now, it's going to be them. It's going to be the Mets because their pitching is going to age out of contention as soon as next season. I mean, you already can't expect DeGrom to come back for any more than 20, 30 innings a year at this point. Scherzer's already 40.
It's like 3 starts.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Scherzer's already basically 40.
But he's shown no signs of slowing down.
Okay, but he's basically 40. So it doesn't, I don't you can't expect, he's also, doesn't have that much term on his deal. He's certainly not going to re-sign after that. He's going to be 41. So that's your window. Unless you want to, the problem is they don't have at that point, they don't have the core necessarily to build a sustained winner with just, some new pitching. They don't have a young offense. They're generally a pretty old team. So,
I mean, Alonso's still 27, 28?
Yeah, he's 27, but that's it. I mean, you have
Pete. He's not a core guy, right? Juan Soto is a core guy, and if you can lock him up after the next 2-3 years, even depleting the prospect pool in the farm system, and if Soto is really looking for a deal that is 12, 15 years, that's something you build around. He's 24. We need to remember that. he's not
even 24. He's 23.
Yeah, he's 23. Yeah, he's not a guy that's going into his age 27 or 28 season. He's 23.
And he's going to hit free agency going into his age 25 season.
Yeah,
probably
he's got all of next year under contract, and then assuming he doesn't reach an extension with whatever team goes out and gets him at the deadline or this winter, he would probably be, and our buddy Ben Brown, who was on the show a couple episodes ago, texted me actually earlier today. We're recording this on Wednesday. Texted me earlier today saying, would Soto be, assuming he reaches free agency, the biggest fish since A-Rod?
Bigger.
Well, biggest since means bigger is allowed.
Yeah,
but he's the biggest since before maybe ever. It's funny because everybody's talking about trading prospects who are 21 years old. I mean, Juan Soto's 23. He's basically a prospect. You could say, oh, we're not going to deplete our farm system. But what is a farm system if not young talent?
Well, the way I see it from a Yankee fan perspective is that you got a guy like Jason Dominguez, call him the Martian. They say he's got, unreal potential in the big leagues.
He just got called up to A-ball, right?
Right. He's been in the system. He was the number one prospect in the international class a couple of years ago. They brought him in. He's been, a consensus top 100 prospect, top 50 prospect for 2-3 years now. But the thing about a kid like Dominguez, and you've got other top prospects in the system. You've got Peraza, you've got Volpe, you've got Austin Wells, Ken Waldachuk. You've got those are their top 5 prospects right now. You hope and pray that a prospect can turn into what Juan Soto has been for the Nationals over the last 4 years. So I'm perfectly okay with trading Jason Dominguez if it means the Yankees can both trade for and sign Juan Soto long term.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's a couple things about that. I mean, for starters, you're not just trading Jason Dominguez, you're probably trading 3 of those guys and a major leaguer. So you're probably trading 2 to 3 of those guys and like Gleyber Torres. It's like
I would guess that Torres doesn't go. I would guess that the Yankees would take on a Corbin contract and part with like Gallo.
You don't think, first of all, that's another bad, like Joey Gallo is also bad. They don't want him. And if you think that the Yankees are going to be the only team who's willing to take on Patrick Corbin, like
no, I mean,
I don't think that
Corbin goes with Soto. I think that's like almost a foregone conclusion. It's such a bad contract. The Nats are looking, the Lerners are looking to sell the team. Like they need to get money off the books, and Corbin is the contract to get off the books.
Send them both to the A's.
I think Steve Cohen should buy the Nationals and then just trade Soto to himself.
Well, interestingly enough, Ted Leonsis, who owns basically all of the major professional sports teams in Washington, D.C., apparently, well, not surprisingly, is emerging as one of the top, bidders. And the Lerners have retained a law firm to assist with the sale. Anyways, getting off track, going back to Juan Soto, and George, you talked about Jason Dominguez and his otherworldly talent. Juan Soto already is an otherworldly talent.
Exactly.
Like I think one thing that a lot of casual fans and even fans like us kind of take for granted is just how good he is. You look at his performance in the home run derby last night or 2 nights ago. I honestly think he's physically incapable of wrapping around an outside pitch and yanking it out. Like you saw him struggle with the outside pitch, which it's BP. Like you think that a guy could muscle one over and pull it to over the right field fence. He looked like he was incapable of doing it. And that just shows you what his skill set is, that his brain is hardwired into doing the right things. And that's longevity. That's going to last a long time. That doesn't go away with age. And he's 23. He's only going to get better.
This isn't a guy who's going to, flame out, God forbid, at like 30 years old. This is a guy who that, if you trade for him and you can lock him up by the end of this season, you can give him that, 12-year deal to the time he's 35, 36. And you're going to get a productive player for at least 8 or 9 years of that.
Yeah.
I sign up for that every day, no matter what the prospect costs.
Juan Soto is the best hitter in the major leagues, and he's 23. I would trade all of my top 5 prospects, take on Corbin, and send a major leaguer. It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't like it. This is basically like if and this isn't equivalent because a quarterback is so much more singularly valuable than any player in Major League Baseball. But this is basically like if Justin Herbert were to come, on the market this year. Like it's
a pretty good comp.
Yeah. I mean, so, any conventions about prospects or whatever be damned unless you're a rebuilding team. And even because at that point, you would want to build around Soto's 23, but if you can't do that, you can't do that. And then you just sort of put him back on the Nationals. So I think rebuilding teams or teams with super, bright futures and young cores that, do want to preserve their prospect pool for potential deadline stuff, either this year or next year. And just for the sake of flexibility, should probably shy away. And I think teams the Dodgers would probably just do it anyway because they're the Dodgers. And they don't care. They don't give a fuck. But like, I wouldn't necessarily do it if I were Houston. Well, no, wait, that's not true. I would do it. I would pretty much do it if I were anybody but like the Rays, because the Rays aren't going to pay him.
I mean, Oakland's not going to pay him. Pittsburgh's not going to pay him.
Okay, but
Baltimore's not going
those
to pay
aren't
him.
real teams. Like,
but also, I mean, look at what Baltimore's doing this year with, their top prospect in Adley. Like, they're a 500 team right now, and nobody had them at a 500 team. Everybody had them losing 100 games, and that they'd be at like 25 wins at this point in the season.
They are not going to lose 100 games this year.
Yeah, I would definitely, if I were Baltimore, I would actually consider flipping Adley and plus for Soto right now immediately. No. So Juan Soto's 23.
No chance.
Why? What do you mean no chance? You wouldn't do that?
I don't think they do that.
I don't know. I would do that. I don't think they do that.
I don't think.
No, they're probably not because they're the Orioles. But like, well, I mean, they're not going to. I don't think
you've got Adley Rutschman. You've got Jorge Lopez, who's emerging as a dominant closer.
I think
the pieces are there in Baltimore.
Look at their farm system. They've got like two or three of the top like 10 pitching prospects. They've got Gunnar Henderson, who they drafted last year. They had the number 1 pick this year. Jackson Holiday. He's definitely more than a couple years away. So that's not
and so are the Orioles.
Doing, right?
I think the Orioles are still, a couple of pieces away, or a couple of years away rather. So I don't think a move for Soto would be the wisest call for them right now.
Why? He's 23.
Because what are you going to put around him when you only have, a couple of blue chips that are major league ready to send to Washington? What are you going to put around Juan Soto besides the Orioles that we've seen, in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021?
Terrible of a team.
I think there's a package that any team could do, right? Like, any team
every team can afford
something together and probably be okay for the next 6 or 7 years. Like, it just depends on how much more they want to delay their their championship contention window. Like, it's very different between making the playoffs with guys like Juan Soto and then a couple of your top prospects, and then keeping a core together at a cheaper price. Like, it's more about that than anything else to me.
But this is sort of why I think that sort of gets back to why I think the Mets make the most sense of any landing spot, because they, like, when you talk about keeping a core together for the future, it's not happening anyway. Like, not this core. Like, they could spend enough money that they're perennially decent and build up their farm system and then build up another, through the draft and then build another contender. That's probably what they're going to try to do. But as far as this core goes, DeGrom, Scherzer, Chris Bassett, I believe, is over 30. Carlos Carrasco's 34, 35. So he's old. Like, their pitching staff is old. Starling Marte is not young. Pete Alonso, isn't old, but he's 27. So, like, he's not, exactly a prospect here. So, like, when it comes to, even if they don't re-sign him, which they certainly will, because they will offer him $500 million plus upon the trade. But, like, if you add Juan Soto to the Mets right now and who they may be next year, they are, if Juan Soto goes to the Mets at the deadline, they have to be considered the front runner to win the World Series at that point. Because
really any contender, right? Like any team that
if the Yankees get him, if the Dodgers get him, if the Padres get him.
Well, no, the Padres have.
Yeah, the Dodgers are running away with the National League West. They're 10 games up coming into the break. The Padres are falling into a crowded wild card race with whoever loses the National League East between the Mets and the Braves. The Giants are still there. The Cardinals are still there. The Brewers, whichever team loses that division. It's all so up in the air in the National League wild card race right now that a guy like Soto would put any team over the top to get that 4 seed.
Right, but the Mets have, I think,
or if you've got someone
baseball.
If you've got someone like the Braves or I haven't checked the National League Central standings in a while, but if you got someone like the Braves or the Cardinals, who I believe are in second place right now, and they go out and get a Juan Soto, does that put them over the top for the division?
I mean, yes, of course it
Yes.
does. The division sucks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but putting you over the top for the division and making you into a complete wagon are complete different things. Like if the Mets started this season with Juan Soto, they would possibly win 110 games. Like maybe not 110, but they would probably win 105, 106.
The Yankees might have won 120 with Soto.
Okay, but I mean,
imagine if Soto was starting every day instead of Joey Gallo.
Are the Yankees going to pay? Is Hal Steinbrenner going to pay $300+ million to Garrett Cole, $500+ million to Juan Soto, and $350+ million to Aaron Judge? I don't think so.
He should. He won't.
He won't. So then you have to ask yourself, would you rather have Juan Soto for $500+ and no Aaron Judge and no farm system, or would you rather just sign Aaron Judge for money, keep your farm system, and generally keep the band together? If I were the Yankees, I'm not willing to sign Soto to his nuclear nuclear contract, then I would actually rather keep Aaron Judge at $350 for less and keep all of my prospects, all of them.
Well, here's where I'm coming out. Here's where I'm coming from as a Yankee fan. I don't think the Yankees are going to make a move for Soto at the deadline or this winter. I don't think Juan Soto ends up a Yankee. I would love to see him in pinstripes. I would love to see him in the Bronx for the next, 10, 12, 15 years. It's not going to happen. Brian Cashman has proven over the last, 10, 15, 20 years, with very rare exceptions, that he would rather hold on to prospects than deal them for big league talent. And when he does deal prospects, it doesn't always work out. You saw what happened with Sonny Gray as a big example of that. In 2017, they make the move for Sonny Gray. They make the move for Robertson, Canely, and Todd Frazier. They don't win a ring that year. They haven't won a ring since. So I don't think Cashman is going to make the move with prospects. Now, if Soto gets moved and hits free agency at the end of the next year, which I don't think he will.
He won't. His arbitration.
I wouldn't be shocked if
so basically what I'm saying is I don't think the Yankees make the move for Soto. And Chip, I'm with you 100% that if I'm Hal Steinbrenner with my checkbook, would I rather have a championship caliber team with guys I'm paying the major league minimum up to after a couple of years, $15-20 million in arbitration, or would I rather not have those guys on the roster, not have Aaron Judge on the roster, and be paying Juan Soto, $35 million a year?
Because it's funny, I'll tell you this: if Aaron Judge hits the market, there's a good chance he ends up in Queens. And as a Yankee fan,
I think the most likely destination if he leaves the Yankees is San Francisco. He grew up a Giants fan. He loves California.
Is he going to turn down Steve Cohen's $450 million?
If Farhan Zaidi is offering him, $350 to play out west, and Hal Steinbrenner is saying bye, then yeah, I think he goes to the Bay. But I don't think he's leaving the Yankees.
That's not.
I don't think Judge leaves the Yankees, but that's another discussion.
The Giants, considering the Giants refused to re-sign Kevin Gausman, I don't think they're going to give a guy $350 million. They're just not. They're not.
Kevin Gausman had one great year. I don't think Aaron Judge is with what we've seen. Aaron Judge is arguably a top 5 player in baseball.
No, he's not even close to a top 5 player. He's like 10 or 11.
You're telling me right now he's not a top 5 player in baseball?
What do you mean? What does right now mean? I mean, you could say the last 2 weeks, Julio Rodriguez.
Look at this season.
Okay.
Is Aaron Judge a top 5 player in baseball this season? Yes or no?
I mean, yes. Overall, okay. No, he is not. I can easily name 6 or 7 players that are better, and I could do it right now. You want me to do it? Okay. Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna Jr. Let's see who else. Probably Jose Ramirez, because he steals a ton of bases as well. Let's see. That's 5. gonna be charitable and exclude pitchers. Although they wouldn't be better anyway. Hold on. There are other players.
So you can't.
Forgetting. I've already named 5.
Fair.
Who's good in baseball that I'm forgetting? Good baseball players. Let's Google that.
Mookie Betts.
Oh,
He
yeah,
is
he's
not
better.
better than Aaron
Yes,
Judge.
he is.
Corbin Burns.
Corbin Burns isn't better because he doesn't, hit. He plays in like 20 games. Show
That's not his fault. That's the
Oh,
Brewers.
So if you guys had to make a
Fernando
prediction,
Tatis Jr.
hasn't played all
I forgot about
season.
him.
Who?
Tatis.
I would low-key
Oh.
think maybe Freddie Freeman.
Nah, I would argue Tatis Jr. over Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, but
I take Judge over
maybe-
both of those guys.
I would certainly not take Judge over Tatis Jr. That's ridiculous.
All right. So if you guys
But
had to,
regardless,
if you guys had to make a prediction for what happens with Soto when he gets dealt, so whether it's, in the next week and a half, or whether it's this winter, or whether it's next summer, who's he going to, and what is his contract going to look like?
I think I sort of have 2 answers to that question. I think if the Mets can convince them to deal him in division, it's the Mets, and that's what's going to happen. But that's only if they can convince him, because they will meet every demand and then some, and be potentially even irresponsible to get him. If they don't get that, I think he ends up in Texas.
With the Rangers?
Yes. The Rangers have deep pockets. I don't know how good their farm system is, but I've heard
They have deep pockets. They just gave $400 million to Corey Seager and Marcus Semien.
Right. I don't think their farm system is that bad. I think they can make that work. And I just think that just sort of feels like the way it's going to go. I don't think he's going to go to the Dodgers because, like, how much of this can they really do? Like, because they got
we ask ourselves that like every day.
It's true. Like, here's the thing: if they end up with in my opinion, the 2 biggest asset fumbles of like the last 5-6 years in Betts and Soto, 2 of the most valuable assets in baseball, combined with Trey Turner and Freddie Freeman, then I think Steve Cohen is going to have to ask himself, like, I'm just going to need to spend. I'm going to need to blow the luxury tax by like 300%. And that'll be fine. And I think he would do that in that case. But like owners like that, Steve Cohen, and anybody with deep pockets is going to have to ask themselves, like, how irresponsible they're willing to be just to compete with the Dodgers. Because because I think the Dodgers are, potentially going to do the thing that, the Yankees used to do during the George Steinbrenner era, which is, outspend
everybody and win.
Have deep enough pockets to make baseball not very complicated. You just go get the best players, and it doesn't matter what it takes to get them. And, it's simple. But if the Dodgers make this move for Soto, like, one, we have to ask ourselves why they haven't won every World Series in like the last 4 years.
Well, what's going on with the Dodgers? Because they've been a top 3 in terms of, regular season production. They've been a top 3 team in baseball for the last 10 years. They've won a Mickey Rouse ring in that time.
Yeah, but the Dodgers they're different now. Like,
are they?
Yes, their rosters, like, you go look at the teams in like 2015 and 2016 and whatever, that this isn't a literal all-star team. You have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner, Will Smith, Justin Turner's okay. Cody Bellinger I have no idea. Oh my God. But like,
all right. So Mets or Rangers, when do you think Soto gets dealt?
I think he gets dealt within the next 5 to 6 days.
Okay.
I think.
And how long is his next contract?
I think there's 2 answers to that question as well. I think either he gets a 2 to 3 year deal with a ton of term, and he just keeps, getting to the next deal at super high average annual, or he gets 13 years, 550, 600, whatever, depending on where he ends up. I wouldn't be shocked if Steve Cohen, if they get him, gives him $600 million.
That's not going to happen.
I mean, like, I don't know if you guys have seen Billions, but the character Bobby Axelrod is based on him, and that is something Bobby Axelrod would do. So,
Okay.
I mean, but it's either 2 to 3 years super high AAV, or 15 million or 15 years infinity dollars. Like, it's, and at that point it almost doesn't matter how much it is.
All right, Max, how about you?
Yeah, so God, it's so tough, right? Because he's in such a unique position, being so young, being so good, and in this market, right? You have essentially 30 teams that should want him. You have 30 teams that probably do want him, but then there's maybe 20 that actually think that they could get him and would even consider pulling together a deal to trade for him. So I think Chip is right. The Mets and the Dodgers are the two most likely. But I think I'm just gonna talk about a dark horse here, and I'm gonna go with the Blue Jays.
God, I
Oh
hope
my
not.
God, I would be against that.
Oh my God, I hate
I
that.
would also be against that, and I would be very sad to see him go anywhere in the AL East except for the Boston Red Sox. But there's no chance that the Red Sox do it, so that's not even a discussion.
No, the Red Sox should sell at the deadline. But that's another
The
conversation.
Blue Jays are in need of a left-handed power bat. That is Juan Soto. They already have such a young core. He would just be another piece in that machine. It would electrify the team, who has stumbled, and they already fired their manager. I honestly don't know their prospect pool, but again, I don't think that's the issue here. They absolutely could pull something together, and they have young, controllable talent up the wazoo. They have so many young guys that are so good, and they could absolutely do that. And the Blue Jays have been known to do some funky things too. I don't think he ends up.
The Blue Jays are
signing.
handing out a $500 million contract.
That's what I was going to say. Is I don't think he actually ends up signing with the Blue Jays, but because they have Vlad Guerrero, they've got Bo Bichette, they've got a lot of young guys that are homegrown talent that they probably want to prioritize first. So who knows? If you get Soto for like 2-3 years with his arbitration, it's like 2.5 years basically, right? That's a window right there for you to win a championship with some cheaper talent and not have to worry about signing him to the $500 million contract. I think he does get 500. And I think that's where we're at this point. I mean, you look at it right now, the Nats offered apparently 440 for 15. If that doesn't get it done, why not just jump up to 500 and put the pressure back on him?
I think there are steps to be taken between 440 and 500. I think you look at 460, you look at 475.
Those are numbers between the two, yes.
I don't think you jump right to 500 and put the pressure on him. I think you negotiate.
The issue with that is that I think it's the length of the deal. If 15 is what you want, then if 15 is the number that you're offering, then you're gonna have to up the AAV. Like that's what he's gonna go after. That's what Scott Boras has been known to go after. He's gonna be real aggressive on that front, and I think 12 years doesn't get it done just because that puts him in kind of an awkward position age-wise when he comes out of that deal. I mean, he's 35 and, we've seen some big contracts for 35-plus-year-old guys, but who knows? He gets that security with those 3 extra deals, and I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, then you can't be paying him. I think 440 for 15 is like 29 million.
Roughly.
That's a really team friendly deal.
Yeah, for a guy like Soto.
Point, and for a guy like Soto, and for the talent he brings for probably 10 of those years at least, maybe even 11, you got to pay him more than $29 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, like 29 million. Scott Boras is gonna block your phone number if you offer that. Like, but yeah, I mean, the now that I had not thought about the Blue Jays pretty much at all. But now that you mention it, like you said, with that contention window, the fact that he's controllable, for a couple years, you have your young core, so you can, try to get over the top, now with, and get super good with Soto. And then when he leaves in free agency and goes to the Mets, if that happens, because there will be no Nationals to block him from going in division. But regardless, I actually, if, they do that, they can, have Soto for a couple years. Then, when he leaves, just continue to build around, your Bichette, your Vlad Jr., all those guys, and even hope some of some of your other young players and prospects are even further along at that point. That would be a great move, obviously, for them, but they would have to basically forget about signing him. Now, if I were Toronto, I would do it anyway, even though my fan base is gonna get super mad when I don't re-sign him. I would totally do it. Yeah, I mean, the question
if you win a championship within the time that you get Soto, that buys you time. Like that buys you a couple of years to rebuild draft capital, to go after some trade bait at other deadlines. Like winning a championship will get you goodwill. Like look at the 2019 Nationals.
Look at the Braves. They let Freddie Freeman walk.
Yeah. I mean, look at it, gets you goodwill, and that matters to owners because it buys them time so that they can twiddle their thumbs and do whatever they need to do with money, while the baseball guys put their heads together and figure out what to do next. Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I gotta say now I kind of think that's gonna happen. Because again, it's punting Soto as far away from the NL East as possible, which I think the Nationals are interested in doing. Probably, unless Steve Cohen goes full Godfather and makes him an offer they can't refuse. But like, yeah, I that is as far away as possible.
It's just Canada. It's not like around the world.
It's international. It's a different country. Wait, can Juan Soto enter Canada?
Yeah, I think
that
so.
That remains to be seen. I think he can.
I think so.
But like so that's actually another interesting. Sorry, Joe, before we get to your prediction, that's also another thing to think about for the trade deadline. Is how those negotiations go with guys that either are known to be unvaccinated or it's unclear. Like Andrew Benintendi, I was reading about the Yankees.
Benintendi and Michael A. Taylor, both targets with the Royals.
Dropping out of talks for the Yankees dropping out of talks for Benintendi because he couldn't go to Toronto. And like when you're playing 19 games against an AL East opponent and you have, I don't know, 7 or 8 games left in Toronto, you can't afford to have your trade deadline piece not be able to play in those games.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees have a huge series in Toronto at the end of the season, second to last week.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to mean anything for the division. The Yankees are up 13 games right now.
And Toronto's kind of sucking right now, so.
And also, the Yankees, we'll see what happens in this doubleheader with the Astros that they have on Thursday. They might not even have to, I'm not going to say they can coast to the best record in the American League, but they have a sizable lead. They win these 2 games against the Astros on Thursday. A doubleheader is hard to sweep, I know, but if they can get some separation with the Astros, maybe you do go get Benintendi and you say, all right, we know we're going to the playoffs. We know we're getting a bye through the first, wild card series. You can take those games off and rest. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But with a team like the Yankees in the situation that they're in, I think Benintendi and Taylor remain possibilities despite their vaccination status. And also, get fucking vaccinated.
Dude,
it's not hard to do.
Steinbrenner, if he were still the owner, would literally shoot them with a dart gun full of the vaccine.
Yeah, and Hal would duck under the desk. But anyway, my Soto prediction.
Yeah, like although, didn't George Steinbrenner do that in that Seinfeld episode when
George Steinbrenner did a lot of stuff in that Seinfeld episode.
When George called in the bomb.
George Steinbrenner did a lot of stuff in real life.
Like firing Billy Martin 5 times. we'll talk
So
about
talking
Steinbrenner
the
sometime.
Yankees, go watch
Um,
The Captain. I watched the first episode. It was really great.
No, I won't do it because Derek Jeter is way too boring to get his own Last Dance style documentary. He's gonna be like, oh, I just, I wanted to be a good teammate, do things the right way. I'm like, shut up. I want to see you be super mean to your teammates.
I enjoyed it.
you know how great Derek Jeter was is that Mets and Red Sox fans can't shut up about him.
Dude, the guy had like 6 extra base hits in his entire career.
5 players of the 20,000+ who have played Major League Baseball have more hits than him. That's the only stat you need.
Yeah,
Derek
they were
Jeter is
all
one of the 10
singles,
greatest players of
so-
all time.
He was a well-marketed Luis Arias.
Okay. Okay.
good
My
player.
Soto prediction. Let's wrap that up and then we'll get into something else. I'm going to toss out 2 teams because I feel like that's what we're doing. I'm going to say the Cardinals
Realistic, yeah.
and Seattle.
No.
I don't know what Seattle's farm system looks like, but they're going into a window.
They got Jared
seeing
Yeah, but
Juan
they're
Soto
Seattle.
and Julio Rodriguez next to each other for the next like 10 years in Seattle
Bro, I'd cry.
would be so much fun.
Julio Rodriguez is a little overrated.
Julio Rodriguez stole my heart at the home run derby when he just
We're getting too
obliterated Pete
excited about
Alonso.
how he takes batting practice.
All right, just because Pete Alonso, is the kid who takes gym class too seriously, doesn't mean that doesn't mean that Julio is not an absolute delight to watch.
No, he's a great player, but like we're talking about like Julio and Juan Soto, like they're equals.
No, I wouldn't say that they are, and I didn't say that
It
they
could
are.
be, but I mean,
No.
no.
Juan Soto.
I will
is the
say
single best batter in Major League Baseball.
I will say Soto. I think the Mariners are a destination. I think the Cardinals is where he's going to go. So I'll say Soto gets traded to the Cardinals by this deadline. And I think he resigns there. I think he's going to get a 13 or 14-year deal for $500 million.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement he gets moved before the deadline, though, right?
I think so.
I think so. I mean,
I think
even though
the Nationals
theoretically you might get more value in the offseason when there's more teams, but like it's the deadline. You're gonna, there's a time crunch there. I mean, I think he absolutely gets moved at it's either this deadline or next year's.
You're also not gonna get as good a return if you hold him for 6 months.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
The quality of your return will be diminished by day as you keep him. So yeah,
right. That's what I'm
thinking.
Well.
Soto's moving by this deadline.
Yeah, I think that the same thing you said about just the diminishing return. I think that's totally spot on. I also think that the situation is going to deteriorate really quickly.
They forced him to fly commercial to LA.
Yeah, I think that it's going to become untenable for him to stay, and I think that Scott Boras is going to put a lot of pressure on the Nationals to move him, whatever pressure he can, and I think they're going to get at some point in the next 3 or 4 days, in my opinion, they're going to get a stupid offer. Like they are going to get the offer, and
the offer
I think
they
they're
can't
just going to go. And I think as the situation deteriorates in the next week, the pressure and as more stuff comes, Scott Boras is already leaking stuff. Like Scott Boras already, confirmed to the media about the flight situation. He's trying to get Juan Soto out of Washington now.
And it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's totally going to happen. I cannot see him playing out the rest of the season. Potentially even getting booed. It's just as stuff comes out about, Juan Soto wants out, blah, 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 blah. It's going to become untenable real quick.
Yeah, if he's there past the deadline, it's going to get ugly.
I mean, that was one thing I was thinking about when we went to the Nats game this past week, right? Is that it was it that day that he declined the offer?
Yes.
Was it the day after or something? It was like right around, like we knew that the deal was coming, or
he declined the offer that morning and then we went to the game.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, okay, I didn't think he was going to get booed, but I didn't know what the reaction would be. It was, pretty standard. Nothing exciting happened, but when even a guy like Juan Soto, when someone rejects a deal like that, that's big news.
Yeah.
That's a ton of money, and that's a long time, and that's a big contract to reject. And casual fans who don't understand quite how much he actually is worth, I mean, it can absolutely change perceptions of a player.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully the Nats aren't very good, so there aren't like tons of people that go to games, but
So so just before we wrap up here, what are you guys looking for in the second half of the season?
Yeah, honestly, like I think we could do some more stuff. Like we could talk about awards. We could talk about honestly, I'm sort of jazzed about baseball right now, being honest.
You said before we started recording that you wanted to wrap quickly, and we're already at about 40 minutes. But
I know,
yeah,
but now that we're talking about baseball,
let's get into it. Let's talk. What are we looking for in the second half? What do we want to see? What are our predictions? And yeah, we can do some like division winners, World Series winner, awards winner.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things I'm looking for. I'm obviously watching the NL East race, not just as a Mets fan, but I think it's obviously the best division race in baseball right now. Like there are other close ones, but those are the best two teams going at it. I think they're both, close to top 5 teams in baseball. I personally think that the Braves are a better team, top to bottom.
Well, you've been saying that since we did the first episode of this.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really think I ever wavered on that, especially since it's become less and less clear that the Mets are ever getting DeGrom back. Like there's a real possibility he's actually thrown his last pitch as a Met, but I think when you look at a rotation of Max Fried, Kyle Wright, Spencer Strider, and a resurgent Charlie Morton, like that's a great rotation. Yes, they lost Freddie Freeman, but Austin Riley is,
he's taking that next step this year.
He's really blossoming into a near MVP level player. Maybe not this year, but like he's that talented. Ronald Acuna Jr., I don't need to say anything about him. That everybody doesn't already know. And they have, a solid, okay back end of the bullpen that I think that is workable, especially with that rotation, that offense. Also, Matt Olson is good. Michael Harris is a breakout right now. So when you look at the Braves, and Dansby Swanson having his, real breakout year. When I look
still
at the
Ozzy
Braves,
too.
Yeah, but he's just not like
still have him, and Darno was an all-star too.
Yeah, but he probably those guys are solid. Like those are, but when
those are role players on a championship caliber team.
Exactly. Yeah. When you talk about the fact that who they're slotting behind and the roles they're being asked to play, they're perfect for it.
Right.
So like I think the top end of their lineup is better than the Mets. I think the bottom end of their lineup is much better than the Mets. I think their rotation, when you basically, throw DeGrom out of the equation, which you cannot expect at this point, that would be a bonus. That would be a treat, a little bit of dessert, but that's can't be expected. When I look at the rotations, and the Mets rotation's good, the Mets lineup is okay. It doesn't hit the ball hard enough. They don't hit for enough power. They're not efficient. But they do a lot of things, well, that manufacturer runs to a degree. And their bullpen's been, okay. And you can definitely expect the Mets, regardless of whether or not they land Juan Soto, to make very, not just big, but targeted and productive moves at the deadline. So they're going to get much better. But, I just think the Braves I think they're better constructed. I think they're more talented. I think they're younger. I think they are.
And you can't discount the fact that they won the World Series last year.
Right. And they've been there. They have and I mean, I don't want
October experience, while potentially overrated, means something.
Yeah, but I don't want to totally discount the Mets in that regard because
the Mets are making the playoffs.
You're right, but Chris Bassett's pitched in the playoffs several times. Max Scherzer's helped carry his team to a World Series. Buck Showalter has been to more playoffs than, almost anybody, who's been to the playoffs with the prime Yankees, with, George Steinbrenner, all those guys. Nobody knows October ball like him.
Buck didn't go to the playoffs with the Yankees.
So he was in the building.
Fair.
I mean, like, plus, with the Orioles, he was like the last guy to take them there.
He definitely didn't go to a World Series with the Yankees. Yankees didn't make the World Series between 81 and 96.
Yeah, but no, I'm not talking about his time as manager necessarily.
Okay.
I'm talking about just being in the building.
But the bottom line, Buck Showalter has a championship pedigree.
Yeah, and Francisco Lindor has played in World Series. Even though
God, that 2016 World Series was so much fun.
That was
it
such
was
a good
fun.
year.
It was fun. It was, one of the best ever. But like, so I don't think, I think the Mets have a little bit more of it than I think people think. But the Braves all do pretty much. I mean, they've been there recently. But like I just don't see a way in which the Mets are a better team right now, unless they get DeGrom back, which changes everything. I just don't see a way or a spot in which the Mets are a better team than the Braves. So I think that's what I'm watching, is that division race. While it won't determine necessarily who's in the playoffs, it's going to be a fun one. But the Braves, I think, are going to win it.
Yeah, I'm watching that race too. I think the Braves are probably going to come out on top at this point. And I think that might be regardless of whether Jacob deGrom comes back, because he's not going to come back at full strength.
Yeah, possibly. Well, I mean, he's thrown 100 in rehab.
I'm looking at the Braves to sort of charge ahead. They're only out by a few games right now. I'll take the Braves in the National League East at this point. I did take the Mets back in April when we started this show. And yeah, I'm watching, the Dodgers are pretty much running away with the West. My Giants prediction is going to fall short this year. Hopefully they make the wild card series, and anything can happen in October. And you know what? Carlos Rodon and Logan Webb are about as good a 1-2 punch in the rotation as you can get.
I can name several more, but go ahead.
So I'm looking at that race, the Brewers and Cardinals, that's going to shake out how it shakes out. Whichever team doesn't win that division maybe doesn't make the playoffs, with the Giants, Padres, and either the Braves or Mets figuring into those 3 playoff spots in the National League. National League wildcard race is going to be so much fun. There are a bunch of teams within a few games. American League wildcard race, Seattle is charging in.
The American League East consolation prize.
Baltimore's charging in. They're only a few games out. I think they should buy at the deadline. It might be a mistake, but they have just as good a chance of making the playoffs as the Blue Jays and Red Sox do at this point.
So my thinking, with the Orioles buying is just that, like, do you really want to? I mean, they're close, but are they really that close?
I mean, I said, 20 minutes ago, they're a couple of years away, and I will stand by that. I think they should still buy controllable talent at the deadline. You want someone who's going to be there for 23 and maybe 24.
Yeah.
So you don't know what arms are going to be available at the deadline.
That's
Luis Castillo is probably going to go. The Yankees are probably the favorite right now. Castillo will probably go to the Yankees or the Astros. That's just how it'll go. The Reds will trade him outside the National League to one of the top teams in the American League. And the Yankees and Astros both need pitching. So I'm watching the Yankees and Astros race for the best record in the AL, because if the Yankees lose one of these 2 games on Thursday against the Astros in Houston, the Astros will have the tiebreaker. So the Yankees will really want to get that top record in the American League, so they don't have to play a game 1 or a game 7 in Houston. And yeah, that American League wildcard race, because I think the divisions by this point are pretty much wrapped up with the Yankees, Twins, and Astros. You've got 6 teams in the Rays, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Orioles, Mariners, and Guardians that could all make the playoffs out of the American League, based on what we've seen over the last month and what we've seen over the course of the season. So I'm really big into this American League wildcard race. I think this is the year Seattle makes the playoffs. Last year they were about as close as possible. I love the meme of them missing the playoffs every year. But yeah, right now I'm going to take, and we'll do some predictions because I want to right now. Right now my 3 American League wildcard teams are the Tampa Bay Rays, the Seattle Mariners, and the Cleveland Guardians. I think the Blue Jays are just stumbling over their own feet. They need a big move at the deadline, whether it's Soto or Castillo or someone else.
I hope I'm wrong about that.
I really
Just
hope
for
you're
the
wrong
record,
about
I
that.
really hope that I'm
Your
wrong.
mouth
about
to
that.
God's ears, Max.
I've warmed to it actually.
That was quick.
If it's not the Mets, I hope it's Toronto.
Just to mess with us.
No, because Vladdy and Soto together would be sick.
So yeah, I think the Blue
Hope I'm
Jays,
wrong.
Major League Baseball expanded the playoffs just to make Blue Jays fans happy this year. And I don't think it's going to be enough. I think the Blue Jays, they have too many problems right now. They're not reaching their potential.
Yeah.
I think they need a big piece at the deadline or a big piece in the offseason to take that next step. You thought it was going to be Gosman. You thought it was going to be extending Barrios. Jose Barrios has been one of the worst pitchers in baseball this year.
That's a little dramatic.
It's a little dramatic, but you know what? I can say that I don't like the Blue Jays. And it's satisfying to see them pay him give him a 7-year contract and have him not deliver anything less than a 4.5 ERA.
Yeah, I forgot about that contract, and that makes me think they are not getting Soto unless they just commit to not.
They have that contract. They have Gosman's contract. He signed a 5-year deal. They have to worry about, Vladito and Bo Bichette coming up. They're still paying George Springer.
I wonder.
But a 2.5-year rental of Juan Soto, that cheap core. That's the argument that I was making.
Right, but is he going to be worth the damage to your system for 2 years?
No.
I think very possibly. I certainly think if you're a team as old as the Mets, but if you're Toronto and you're young and your core is young, actually that makes you more likely to do it. Never mind. That makes you. Although
right.
The Mets talking himself into this one.
So that's what I'm looking for in the second half of the season. I think, the Yankees are going to get the top record in the American League. The Dodgers are going to get the top record in the National League. They're going to meet in the World Series. The Yankees are going to win in 7 games. That's my prediction right now. Max, why don't you wrap us up with what you're looking for in the second half?
I don't really have much new to add. Seattle's a lot of fun to watch, and I really want them to make the playoffs. I lived in Seattle, so Seattle is like my second team. And so it's a lot of fun to watch them. They've got some good young guys, and Julio's been amazing. Kyle Lewis, hopefully he doesn't keep getting injured. Logan Gilbert has been great. Marco Gonzalez has been surprisingly effective this year.
I didn't realize he was still in the league.
Disagree. He's worst in the league in FIP. He's bad.
But it's Marco Gonzalez. I'm setting the bar on the ground here.
And that's
where it belongs.
It's Seattle. I'm watching Seattle. They're just a fun team. And again, for the National League, the Braves, I love guys like Acuna Jr. I love guys like Tatis that just play with a lot of passion and fire and really just are changing the game and shifting it away from, we talked about unwritten rules with Ben, sort of shifting that narrative away. I think it's good for the game to grow it, to adapt and change and not be stuck in the 1940s. So a lot of great baseball. Both wild card races are going to be amazing. That is without question. And honestly, I think that is actually helped by having teams running away with divisions at this point, because it's a race for second. Well, a race for fourth and fifth and sixth, but you know what I mean. And so we'll see where that shakes out. I think any of the teams that are currently within a shouting distance of any of the wild card spots, not even the top one, could make it. So there's a lot of teams involved, and it's going to be a lot of fun baseball, a lot of important baseball, which is exactly what Major League Baseball wanted when they negotiated this new CBA and added the expanded playoffs. This is exactly what they wanted. And it's working out. It's paying off for them. So a lot of great stuff, and we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah. Seattle's won 14 coming into the break, 14 in a row, rather, coming into the break. Today, Wednesday, was the last day until that Sunday in early October when the regular season ends that we won't have at least one Major League Baseball game. So we got a lot of baseball left to play. It's going to be a lot of fun seeing how this, playoff race shakes out with the extra spot in each league. So that just about wraps up this episode of Shout at the Plate. Great to get back to this. Great to talk with you guys more about baseball. Yeah, keep it here on the channel. DC special event drops Friday. So
Oh god. Did you edit stuff out?
our very well paid editor is taking care of stuff.
Okay, because I'm not trying to, get canceled.
All right. We will we'll see you guys the next time we do Shout at the Plate. No clue when that's going to be right now, but we're having fun while we're doing it. So hopefully we see you soon.
I will say this: if the Mets get Juan Soto, I'm just gonna do a solo episode, and I just go ballistic the whole time.
I'm very much looking forward to that if that happens.
Yeah.
So
we could possibly do a Soto thing.
we should. I mean, tonight was basically a Soto thing.
Well, I mean, but like I could either go ballistic or just be super miserable. I think those are both really fun.
Yeah, and maybe we'll bring in Ben or Mo or one of our other baseball buddies, or one of the baseball players I've reached out to on Twitter will finally reach out back to me.
Logan Morrison, Connecticut College Camel Club baseball first baseman.
Yo, I forgot that we reached out to Lomo on the old pod.
Yeah, well, we needed bodies for our team, and he hadn't signed anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Good night.
See ya.